Hi, guys. Welcome to the All Things Running podcast. It's your host, Jacob, here. And today I sit down and talk with Lisa, who is a physical therapist, very well known on Instagram, having over 106,000 followers. She provides a lot of really helpful content related to form, strength, mobility, even nutrition. She just covers the whole spectrum, and I think she's a great resource for if you're looking to learn more in the realm of strength training. Something that I think a lot of runners should be incorporating into their training when they're not most of the time. So yeah, just check her out on Instagram. I'll put all the links to her stuff in the description so you can check her out. And I hope you enjoy this episode. It's a bit different in that it's more of an informative, educational chat, whereas the last many episodes I've had have all kind of been about running and racing, but less focus on injury prevention and things like that. So I hope you enjoy this a bit of a different episode. And if you did, please support me and rate the podcast, share it with your friends. You know what to do. All these things really help and go a long way in helping to grow this podcast. So, having said that, I hope you enjoy this episode with Lisa, and I'll see you in the next one. Hi, Lisa.
Hey, how are ya?
I'm good. Good morning. How are you?
Doing good.
Happy
Okay.
happy belated Thanksgiving.
Yeah, you
How
too.
was
You
how was your
too.
Thanksgiving? Was it good?
Yeah, it was really good. How was yours?
It was good. Did you go trot?
Awesome. Yeah, I did it by myself, if that counts, but
That
I
counts,
did.
absolutely. Do you have any local 5K turkey trots around you or not really?
I I do, but I hosted yesterday and it was like probably 40 minutes. It was literally on the other side of town in Richmond, so I was
Yeah.
like, no, let me just do it around my neighborhood. But next year I'll probably do it.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Congratulations on your half marathon, by the way. I know it's
Oh, thank you.
been a few weeks at this point. For the
Yeah.
listeners, what would you race and how'd you do?
So I raced in 2 hours and 4 minutes and 15 seconds. So I was like 45 seconds off a PR, which I like went into the race like, oh, it's just going to be a casual race. Like, not going to worry about my time because I really hadn't been working on speed. I've been running a lot with my mom, who was returning to run after plantar fasciitis. So we did a lot of walk runs.
Nice.
So I was really just focusing on like endurance at that point. And then, of course, you're in the race and you're doing well.
Mhm.
And I was like, all right, let me try to PR. But it was like 75 degrees that day. So
Oh,
I
geez.
it was pretty hot. It was
Uh,
humid. So I was like close, but I was like really proud of myself at the end of it, just because I really hadn't worked on speed. But I had a pretty good pace for myself like the whole way through. So
yeah.
surprised myself still.
Yeah, I mean,
But
you went into the race not even thinking you were gonna go for a PR, so to get that close, kind of making the decision in the race itself to pick it up, that's pretty impressive that you were that close. So, seems optimistic to me that things will look good for you in the future.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
Yeah, well,
definitely.
awesome. I'll give a little bit of background on you. So everyone, I'm talking to Dr. Lisa, who's a PT, well known on Instagram with over 106,000 followers. Um, because of that, I didn't know if I was going to be able to get you on, but it was you're very nice and very flexible. We had to move it to today. Um, so yeah, it was awesome to get you on. So over 106,000 followers. It provides a lot of helpful content in the PT realm to the running community. Um, Pretty much covering everything from form to strength to mobility, even a little bit in the nutrition realm. I've noticed you get a little bit into the
Mhm.
nutrition realm as well. So just a very knowledgeable person who provides research back content to the community, which is appreciated because we talked in the DMs at one point about a certain person on Instagram who sometimes suggests things without any research to really back it up. Um, so that's kind of an important thing to be able to use science to back up what you're doing, and that's something that you do really well, I'd say. So that's one thing I really appreciate about your Instagram. And according to your website, you've coached over 1,200 people, which is awesome. Do you call them your patients or your athletes, or what do you call them?
I just call them my clients or my runners.
Influence.
But yeah, I mean, it's really exploded, which has been amazing that I've been able to help so many people. There's been a pretty large gap in physical therapists for runners. I've noticed that that's kind of why I jumped into this field. I had a lot of mentorship with my first job out of grad school where I treated a ton of runners, was kind of thrown into it, which I was like, oh my gosh, they're so ready. They're like 2 weeks out from a race and they're hurt. Like, I got to do everything I
Mhm.
can. I was very like devoted to them and I really fell in love with that field. Or that specialty, I guess you would say. And luckily, I had a lot of great mentors along the way because a lot of therapists, you don't come out of PT school with a specialty. You really have to know everything about everything in PT to
Mhm.
pass boards. So you really come out being more of a generalist and then you kind of pick which setting you want to go into. But
Mhm.
a lot of PTs in the ortho setting are not necessarily like specialized in treating runners. They can,
Mhm.
of course, but there's kind of that gap in the field I've noticed where the runners definitely need more special attention than just general exercises that um,
Mhm.
a lot of PTs will give them, and nothing against them. They just, maybe haven't learned exactly what runners need. So it's
Mhm.
really been an honor. I'm very grateful to have helped so many runners. So I really do love I love what I do.
Yeah, I mean, congratulations, because that's a huge accomplishment to where you are right now with how many people you've been involved with and helped to get back and healthy so they can run and be happy. I agree. I think it's definitely like a gap in the field that I've noticed because I've gotten injured a lot, and so I've been to PT a lot. Um, and a lot of the PT places I've been to, there might be like one person there who's knowledgeable in the area of running. I actually had a person on the podcast last episode, Patrick Lister, who was a PT from York who worked with me, and he is knowledgeable in the space, so he's one of those people. But you might only find one in each clinic. Like it's pretty rare, and even if there is one, sometimes they won't really know like exactly what you need. So
Mhm.
I agree. I think it's a good, it was a great opportunity for you to dive into. I think it was a smart move, and also something you're passionate about. So that works out really well.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that I want to run over just your background is you offer a lot of plans on your website. You have 5 programs: the Runners Complete, Foundations, Foot and Ankle, the Hip, and Runner's
Mhm.
Knee. So you cover a lot of bases there on the website that people can purchase and use. And is that kind of a more generalized plan? That one's not like personalized, right?
It's not. And I'm actually in the process of making them all into a membership because I found that,
Mm.
once someone maybe they sprain their ankle and they go through the foot and ankle program and they're ready to run, but they're not exactly sure the next step. So I'm combining all of them so they can then transfer to foundations and runners complete. And it kind of completes that whole or I guess making sure that they can progress and not get injured as they go through these programs versus foot and ankle program. It's great. I mean, I've helped over 500 runners with that, getting back to returning to run pain free. But then it's like, well, what's the next step?
Mm.
And
Mhm.
so I think it's going to be really, really, I'm really excited to bring them all together. So people don't necessarily have to pick and choose based on their budget too. So it's going to be awesome. I'm so excited for this
That's awesome.
membership.
There you go, a little teaser for everyone
Yeah.
listening. A little teaser into it. I don't know if you said that on Instagram yet, have you?
I think I have, but I was like
Ah.
nervous to put a date to it because I'm working so hard and I'm like, feel
Hmm.
like, you work so hard on something and then you've got like 2 things done. So I'm really trying to like get everything done before I put like a date to when it's going to
Yeah.
launch, but it is going to be soon because all the programs are made. I'm just
Mm.
transferring them over to a different
Oh.
site.
Oh, nice. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Under promise, over deliver. That's the key. You don't want to. It's like you don't
Right.
want someone at a restaurant to tell you 30 minutes and it takes 30 minutes. You want them to tell you an hour and then it takes 30. Um,
Yes, exactly.
awesome. So yeah, so we run down the background. I want to get into the PT section of our talk because first of all, I want to talk about your PT, obviously. Um, that's why we're here. And then I want to talk about your running as well after that. And then we'll get into a little fun, more of a fun section, and then we'll call it a wrap. So As always, kind of one thing I like to ask is how did you get into this area? So how do you get into PT? You kind of hinted at it a little bit, but just maybe a little bit of a rundown of kind of how you landed in the field and specifically where you're at now.
Yeah, so I had the opportunity in high school to go to a specialty center for sports medicine. So that was half a day my senior year of high school, and it was like 3 hours of just sports medicine stuff, which I fell in love with. I thought it was so interesting. I started to learn muscles in high school. I started to learn, it was a little bit more athletic training based, but it was still amazing, and it really let me dip my toes into the field. So I did that to basically also avoid taking physics in high school, which is hilarious because I had to take physics 1 and 2 in college as a prereq for PT.
Oh, it's
So
probably worse too in college.
it was very hard, but I got through it. So I did that in high school, and I went into sports medicine in my as my undergrad, and I really thought I wanted to do more athletic training just because that's what I was exposed to in high school. But I was also playing softball in college. So that was like very difficult to get my hours in athletic training and play softball. So I was like running from softball practice to football practice just to get my hours in. And I just had this moment where I was like, what am I doing? Like, this is total burnout my freshman year. I love the sports med aspect, but maybe this is just a sign like I should go a different field in sports med. So I still kept my sports med major. I just kind of switched my like, I don't know, I guess concentration from athletic training to, I don't even know what I switched it to, maybe like kinesiology. I don't know. They kind of all blended together. But I knew then and there that I wanted to go to PT school. So I really, buckled down. My grades were great. And I really made sure my grades were like definitely a priority in college. So I didn't mess around with that. And after I graduated from undergrad, I was on the wait list at Shenandoah. I only applied to 2 schools, which is a no-no, but I did. And I didn't get into VCU, which is a big public school in Richmond, but I got in, or I got waitlisted at Shenandoah, and then 2 weeks later I got in. So went right into PT school after undergrad, and very thankful that I went to Shenandoah, and it was just amazing professors, and they really helped me see patients as a whole versus just treating their injury. So I'm very happy with like how the plan worked out. Definitely my favorite.
That's awesome. So where you're at right now in terms of the people you work with through your website and your Instagram, um, what's the kind of demographic that you see in terms of age and are all of them runners, by the way? Are they other people too, like triathletes or just general public? What is your yeah.
Yeah, so I would say 99% of them are runners. And then 1% like, can you still help me if I'm a hiker or a rower or even play tennis? And I'm like, yes, absolutely. I'm not just treating runners, but
Mhm.
I could definitely help you too. And I would say like most of them are in their 30s or 40s, and most of them are recreational runners that just love running and want to get back to it for, whether it's their mental health, their physical health, a combination of both. So I really feel grateful that I can kind of give them their life back in a way versus,
Mhm.
just someone off the street that has shoulder pain. I feel like runners are so like stubborn and ready to get back to running, and they do not want to hear I can't run, so they will do literally whatever they can to not run. So they want to make sure that they can keep running, which is great because then they stick with their exercises.
Yeah.
They enjoy learning more about running, which I, make sure I provide that information of why they're feeling pain or what's going on.
Mhm.
So it really is like a win-win because I'm determined to get someone back, but I get frustrated if someone's not as determined as I am to get
Mhm.
to get back to being pain free. So I feel like this is honestly a great match for my personality too.
Yeah, I agree. Like a lot of runners just they're type A. They wanna see results and they only want to run. But unfortunately that's not something that is realistic for a lot of people. especially me being
Yeah.
injury prone. A lot of others out there, you got to do the strength work to make sure you're good to go. My problem has always been that I'll do the strength work to get healthy, and then I'll just drop the strength work right when I'm healthy. I'm like, oh, I'm good now. I can just run. And like I know now that that's stupid, but back when like when you're younger and stuff, you just think you're invincible. And like right when you get healthy, you're like, ah,
Yeah.
that's it. I'm good now. Like I got the strength, and for some
Hmm.
reason in your head, you don't think that maybe that strength goes away. Um,
Yeah,
but how do you? This
exactly.
is a little off script, but how do you work with people like that? Because first of all, like when when you finish a personalized plan with someone, do they go off and like you don't talk to them anymore, or are you still in communication afterwards just to make sure that they're gonna be okay going forward?
Yeah, so I'm usually in communication with them. I usually guide them to once they're kind of at that point where they know what to do if they get injured again, or they know what to do to prevent injury as well. Then I kind of guide them to my strength and mobility program. And I think they really enjoy that because they know it's challenging. They know it's exactly what they need to prevent injury. And it's also, they can still stay in contact with me.
Mm.
So they most of them go off and do the Runners Complete program, and so they make sure that they stay in contact with me that way too, which is
There you go.
nice.
Yeah, I try to hold them a little bit accountable to keep doing their exercises. That was kind of my
Hmm.
question, kind of targeting myself there with how do you keep them
Hmm.
accountable to keep doing their exercises after they're healthy? But yeah, I think
Hmm.
that's probably a good way to do it. Um, cool. And in terms of like how many programs are bought versus just your customized plans, like what's kind of the ratio there? Are most of the people just buying your pre-made plans and then a select few are doing the customized like coaching plans?
Yeah, so a lot, I would say 70%, I guess, do the pre-made plans. And a lot of the times I'll do a movement screen with someone if they want to work with me. But if it's if I think that they could just go through one of my I wouldn't say just, but go through one of my programs, stay in contact with me on the app, then I kind of guide them that way versus someone that maybe is a little bit more complex. Maybe they have a history of a couple different injuries going on. So it's not just cookie cutter like lateral
Mm,
hip pain after running. Then they tend to come towards more like the custom side. But I
mhm,
really max out at 10 each month. So I don't take more than 10 one-on-one clients just to make sure that I can give them the attention they need. And so most of them, I would say, go more towards like the pre-made plans, and they're
mm,
more affordable, obviously, but they also have exactly what they would need, even if like they went to a PT and had a lateral ankle sprain. The
mm.
foot and ankle program is going to guide them and progress them with exactly what they need throughout the 12 weeks. So it tends to be like a win-win. Also, people
Yeah.
don't always, people since COVID don't want to drive to PT as much
Mm,
because we're used to staying at home. It's convenient. So they just pull up their app and it's kind of like I'm on their app walking them through the exercises. So it really is still like kind of having that personalized experience in a way. And then they obviously can message me on the app too.
yeah, that's pretty awesome. Like that's always kind of an annoyance. Like, I gotta drive to PT. Gotta spend
Hmm.
an hour there, gotta come back. It's like round trip, it can be like 2 hours or whatever. So it's a very long, it's a lot of time versus if you're in your
Hmm.
home, you can just pull up the app, watch Lisa tell you what to do, follow Lisa's instructions, and then you're out. You're probably done in like 20, maybe 25, 30 minutes.
Yep.
Um, is that kind
Yep.
of the typical length of your programs? Like, is it usually in like that 25 to 30 minute range for the strength exercises?
Yeah, I would say like so my injury treatment programs are my foot and ankle, my knee or my runner's knee and my hip program. So they're about 20, 30 minutes a day. And then my strength and mobility program is three strength workouts a week. So they're about 40, 45 minutes. And
Mm,
then they have the mobility to do after they run, which is about 10 minutes. So once you get the hang of things to it, obviously it goes by faster and depends on your rest breaks and all that. But I would say the strength is about 40 to 45 minutes. And I am the type of person that hates wasting time. So it's
mm,
very direct to do this exercise and I'm not going to fluff anything up. Like, this is
yeah.
exactly what you need. I'm not just going to fill it with other exercises that you wouldn't necessarily need. So I really make
Mm,
sure it's direct to the point because my guess is the runners don't want to necessarily strength train, but if they are, they're going to make it worth their time.
I would say that's pretty accurate. Not from personal experience. I hate the lifting. Oh my gosh, but I know it's important, so I do it. I do it. It
Yeah.
also feels good when you finish. You feel like your muscles are primed. You feel a little stronger.
Hmm.
And
Yep.
I've found that sometimes, like if I lift the day before a run, I feel really good the next day. I'll feel like just healthier.
Hmm.
The joints feel better. Um,
Yep.
so I don't know if there's probably some science to that too. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yep.
it's
Definitely.
yeah, no, I like that feeling, so it keeps me doing it. But I think one thing a lot of us would like to hear is what are some of the most common running injuries you see from your over 1,200 people you've had come to you, and
Yeah, I would
kind of
say, sorry,
yeah,
go ahead.
no, and just key things that can be done for them as well.
Yeah, so I would say the biggest thing I probably see, it kind of goes in weird waves. Like right now, I'm seeing a lot of proximal hamstring tendinopathy, which
Mm-hmm.
I like haven't seen all year. And now I'm seeing also a lot of, I always see like runner's knee or patellofemoral pain syndrome. I always see plantar fasciitis and like Achilles tendinopathy. But right now, there's like a big influx in proximal hamstring tendinopathy. And I think it's more because people maybe just raced and just increased their mileage and all of these compensations are kind of showing up and now they're causing some pain. But yeah, I would say like general, if you asked me in like February, I would say it would be mostly like patellofemoral pain syndrome,
Mm-hmm.
maybe some lateral hip pain, and some Achilles tendinopathy, plantar fasciitis, and then always shin splints, always.
Always shin splints. That's the one you always hear every time. I always have
Yeah,
friends who say they have shin splints. It's weird because I've never had it my entire life. Like I don't know.
yeah.
I guess I don't know what it is. I'm just built. I'm not built for getting shin splints. I'm built for having knee problems and foot problems. So
Yeah, it's like pick your battles there.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Uh, so like that's interesting because I guess the time, depending on the time of year, the injuries you see might be different. Uh,
Yeah, yeah. So
what
in the
have you noticed any
winter,
overall trends in that?
yeah, in the winter there's more knee pain, there's more ankle sprains because some people slip on ice too, or they're running in the snow, which is, they tend to there's more falls basically.
Mm-hmm.
Also people, I guess in the winter too, more knee pain. I kind of just see that all year round though. And then more, definitely more like back pain come February,
Mm-hmm.
March, just because people tend to sit more in the winter and not go outside as much. So there's definitely some trends there. But
Oh, interesting.
yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. And like, I guess maybe this might be shooting a little bit overboard, but like, sometimes there's a lot of ice in the winter, so you're slipping, and
Hmm.
then your glutes might be getting a little tweaked because I know sometimes if I run on a lot
Hmm.
of ice the day after, I'm like, oh man, my glutes are so sore right now. So that could have
Yeah.
something to do with it as well. Just like the slipping that occurs when you're running in the winter, kind of can tweak things
Yeah.
out a little bit. But you might not think that, but it can, especially if
Yeah.
you run in a colder area like Pittsburgh. I used to run in Pittsburgh, and it was always icy, like in the winter. It's just brutal winters in Pittsburgh, and I'd be slipping
Hmm.
everywhere, and I just like it's terrible. But
Yeah. And if you're running outside too and it's very cold, like, I mean, my
mhm,
parent or my mom's from Pittsburgh, so we go up there all the time and it's absolutely freezing, but everything is tense too. So if you think about like when you're running, maybe on snow or scared of ice, you're going to run very like nervous. You're going to have some fear. So it's almost like you're kind of like, think about if you were to not run in shoes and just run barefoot outside, you're going to change your gait a little bit. And it's the same thing if you're running on like snow or ice.
mhm.
Your gait might be changed just a little bit, but everything might also be tense because you're trying to
Mhm.
control how everything is moving more than just running on, flat sidewalk, dry, everything's good.
Yeah, I don't know if you're on Strava. Are you on Strava?
I think I am. I don't know. I don't use it. I
Good
think
for
I
you.
made one once.
Yeah, yeah. Well, there's a professional athlete, Nick Willis. I don't know if you know him, but he's run a lot of sub 4 miles. And he's a very legitimate runner. But he had a post one day on Strava where he was like, a little concerned. I was slipping today on my run, and I was like, "What does he mean by that?" And then I looked into it, and I was like, "Oh, okay, all right. I can see why he's a little concerned now, because he's like an older guy too. He was running
Hmm.
really well into his mid 30s, and so that kind of opened my eyes to it as like there's little things like that that can open up, the door for injury that you don't think about, just like small things
Yeah.
like that. So I gotta keep an eye on it, of course. Um, but I guess I'll ask this for my friend Cardamone, who has a lot of patellofemoral issues. What's kind of like some key things that you notice help people with that specific injury?
Yeah. So if they're on, so I like to kind of put them in certain categories. So if you're only having pain when you're running, then I would definitely look at more of your form, maybe more of your higher level dynamic quad and glute activation, but mostly form. I would definitely check out form. If you're having pain like going up and down stairs, squatting, like things outside of running that aren't necessarily like higher level, but more
Mhm.
with that dynamic movement, then I would look more at like how is your patella tracking? Most of the time it's unstable if you're having patellofemoral pain issues. Like basically the patella is not tracking correctly. So that really tells me like we need to start to activate that quad more. And it's not necessarily like quad strength, there's a big difference, but more so like that motor control. So knowing how if you tell your brain to activate your quad versus that's motor control versus you just doing a
Mhm.
squat. So there is a difference there, and a lot of people can mix that up. But a lot
Okay.
of like quad stability, glute activation, and I'm not talking clamshells for glute activation.
Nothing, anything but clamshells, please.
Yeah, I
I
don't.
hate clamshells.
They're not necessarily bad, but they're also like now that I know more about the research of running, they're not necessarily as good as people think they are.
Mhm.
They're not the magical exercise that everyone thinks. And
Yeah.
a lot of people will do them like crazy just to for hip pain, knee pain. It's like, oh, knee pain, do clamshells. And that's really not the whole story of knee
Mhm.
pain. But a lot of the time, I mean, for sure, I'd look at patella tracking and just seeing like, how is the knee doing in a dynamic motion? Definitely looking at like trunk stability and low back. So anytime someone has an injury, you have to look at the joint above and below. So for the
Mhm.
knee,
Mhm.
check out the ankle. Is the ankle stiff into dorsiflexion, causing you to compensate when you're running? Or is the trunk and pelvic stability off or a little bit unstable, causing more of that dynamic knee valgus where the knee is caving in? So the point is there's a lot of things to look at with an
Mhm.
injury, and it's never one thing. It's,
Yeah.
I mean, it's rarely one thing, very rarely, especially with runners. But in terms of like running form, you really want to make sure someone's not overstriding. And I'm not necessarily looking at foot strike. There's research out there that says that, changing your foot strike is not necessarily the best thing for you to do if you're injured. It
Mhm.
more so comes down to also, and now I'm not even really looking at cadence. I used to harp on cadence a lot. And then once I started looking more into the research, I was like, how am I going to tell someone that there's like a magic number for cadence? So, like, a lot of
Yeah.
people talk about 180 steps per minute, but
Mhm.
that's like a average of elite runners when they're running a marathon. And when your pace is slower, your cadence is slower. And I
Mhm.
was getting a lot of like the questions like, what's my magic cadence? And I'm like, I have no idea. So how can I even, there's no formula.
Mhm.
There's no, there's nothing on it. It's just your steps per minute. And if your steps are
Mhm.
lower per minute, then that means you're probably overstriding. But it could also
Yeah.
mean that you're just running slower at a slower pace. So I
Mhm.
kind of have gotten away with that and really dove into the research there. And it really comes down to where's your foot landing in relationship to your body. So if you're overstriding, sure, you might be heel striking, but you're look at the angle of where your tibia is as it hits the ground versus where your foot's hitting the ground. Okay,
Mhm.
so if that angle is more of like that 45 degrees, you're really stretching out your foot, that's going to put more force, more pressure through your foot, your ankle, your knee, your hip. And that really has more of a correlation with higher risk of injury versus if you can bring your foot back and bring it more towards your center of mass. I don't care at all how you're striking your foot. I mean, you could heel
Mhm.
strike and be healthy, and you can forefoot strike and be healthy. It doesn't necessarily matter that much according to the
Mhm.
research. And what I've seen, it's more so like, where's your foot landing in
Yeah.
relationship to your body? And then it comes down to that pendulum of your leg swinging. So if you're overstriding, you're probably 99% of the time not getting into that full hip extension because your pendulum's more
Mm,
forward for your leg swinging, versus if you are focusing on bringing your foot and landing more towards your center of mass, aka like your trunk, your pelvis, then you will get into that full hip extension and it'll be a lot more fluid. You'll be a lot more
mhm.
efficient of a runner. So it really comes down to running
Yeah.
form does play like a huge role in injuries.
Interesting. So that's okay, this is a question I have for later, but where would you rank the three things in terms of strength, mobility, and form? How would you rank them in terms of importance from least to most important?
So I think it's going to depend on the runner. If they
Yeah.
are completely unstable, their single leg squat looks like not good, then all these things are going on. Maybe they're off balance, maybe their shoulders are leaning. We need to
Mhm.
get your stability down and your
Yeah.
mobility down. Maybe your hips are tight, your ankles are tight. So I don't even want to look at your running form. I don't even want to look at your strength yet. We really got to get those foundations down
Mm.
versus just throwing weights on and telling you to strength train. And that's where also runners can get confused because they're like, well, I strength train now, and now I'm like, you know, more injured, or I started increasing my mileage and I'm injured, but they're they kind of jumped, they skipped the stability and the mobility aspect of those
Mhm.
foundations, and they jumped and threw weight on them. And now it's like their squat, which was never that great and showed a lot of compensations body weight. Now they're adding a load to it, and now it's just more compensation. So I would really
Mhm.
say, like I always talk about, three pillars of running, which is stability and mobility is like your baseline, your foundation. You have to get that down before you can add on strength training. And then
Mhm.
once you're good there, that really comes down to, is your form. What does your form look like? And
Mhm.
then you go into more of the strength training aspect. So now you can build on more of like the load. You can start doing like lower reps, higher volume. And then it comes down, once you have the strength down, then you can start to add speed or power, which is the next step, is building more of like that power, which translates into speed when you're running. So the
Mhm.
running form, not everyone needs to change their running form. So it's really person dependent, because someone could have great running form but need to focus more on like their strength training
Mhm.
aspect and just get stronger, and then they'll watch, then they can build more power and watch their speed increase or decrease. But so it really does depend on the person, depends on the injury. So I don't like
Mm.
to, cookie cutter it, because
Yeah.
it really depends. It
Yeah,
depends.
I think that
The
upsets people to
phrase
hear
of the
that, but
day.
like it really like so many questions regarding PT, the answer is going to be it depends, and then there'll be a little like explanation after that because it's just everything depends on the athlete that you're looking at. So I didn't
Hmm.
expect a clear-cut answer on that or any of the other questions I'm asking today. That's just how it goes. So, and some people
Hmm.
get frustrated by that. I've gotten frustrated by that in the past because I just want a quick solution, like everyone does.
Yeah.
That's why we see a lot of things on the market that offer short-term solutions like that, just orthotics and other things that you can do to help yourself in the moment, but none of that's going to help in the long term. So that's when you gotta be patient. Sometimes it takes time to figure out what's going to work for an athlete. Um, and have you ever experienced that where you're kind of working with an athlete, maybe you're doing personalized work, and I'm sure you have experienced this, and that you kind of have to call an audible or switch something up because something's not working. Like how do you work through
Hmm.
that process with someone? How does that work?
Yeah. I mean, everything in PT is trial and error. It's
Hmm.
it even if the research backs it up and you've seen this work for 100 other patients, someone can have the same diagnosis and just not respond the same. So everything is trial and error. You just start to, as you gain more experience as a PT, you start to pick up on more patterns, which can help kind of localize what's going on more. So your trial and error becomes less of like a guess versus like if
Hmm.
you're a new grad, obviously you're kind of just throwing things at a wall hoping they stick. But as you gain more experience, I mean, you can kind of pinpoint exactly what that person needs, especially if they're a runner. Then, as you learn more about running and you look more into research, it becomes easier to, I don't want to say easier to treat, but you just get you pick up on patterns more. It all comes down to
Yeah.
like the patterns that you see. But that just because, one person has, lateral knee pain at the exact same point when they're running as patient B, that does not mean they're going to respond the same. So I
Mm,
think that's important to note as a PT is, you know, making sure that you again treat that patient as a whole. What's going on with like their stress, their sleep, their training plan. Like it injuries are never, they're very rarely one thing. Like,
yeah.
okay, yes, maybe you have compensations going on and you have an injury, but let's also look at your training plan. Let's also look at your stress
Hmm.
level, your sleep, your diet, your nutrition, all these other aspects that can definitely cause or kind of heighten that injury, that pain level.
Hmm.
So I think the biggest thing is staying in communication with your patient, asking the right questions, like how did you feel when you were doing this? Did it feel more challenging? I always compare the exercise that gives someone, if it's a unilateral exercise, and I compare it to the other side,
Hmm.
because that's usually the side that is like their norm. So that's a great way to compare. So I think it's really, you're not necessarily train. You shouldn't. I mean, it's kind of rare if you're doing. I shouldn't say you shouldn't, because I've done this before, and it's really just depends on the person. But you're rarely completely changing your plan. It's just
Hmm.
tweaking a couple things. Let's try this and see how you respond. Oh, okay, it didn't change your pain level. All right, let's try something else.
Hmm.
Um, but a lot of the time too, it's important to understand that exercise, you're not going to like do 30 bridges and be pain free. Like these things take time. So a lot of like the trial and error is let's give it some
Hmm.
time. The body takes, 6 to 8 weeks to really strengthen. So we have to respect that. You can't just hope that you did these exercises 3 times and you're pain free, but really understanding the body too is important versus
Hmm.
I might try an exercise and I really think it's going to help someone, but I again sometimes if they're like, oh, I didn't feel that different, I sometimes get I get frustrated or disappointed in myself, but I'm like, no, you need to give it some time and just
Hmm.
patience, and I have to remind myself that too.
Yeah, you want them to be healthy as soon as possible. No, no,
Yes.
no hiccups.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
exactly. But
yeah,
staying flexible with your plan is really important.
absolutely, 100%. I mean, I would say 100% of the time it's not going to go exactly as planned. Like 99% of
Yeah.
the time it's not going to go exactly as planned. You're going to have to call audibles, and
Hmm.
that's a very something you can apply to life in general. It's never going to go exactly as you have planned, so you're going to have to adjust, and that's just part of how it goes. But when you have
Hmm.
someone to communicate with, like a PT, that they can help you to make those adjustments. Um, so that's
Hmm.
that's great. I think that's a very important thing. Um,
Yeah.
on the topic, kind of similar to the most common running injuries, what are kind of some of the this may be similar, but what are some of the common immobilities or compensations that you see, or is this too similar to the last question?
No, it's not. I mean, there's a lot. I mean, this comes back to picking up on patterns because I've treated so
Hmm.
many runners in person and virtually. So a lot of runners will have stiff big toes, stiff ankles into dorsiflexion, lack of hip extension, trunk instability, and lack of glute max strength is a big one
Hmm.
too. They also have a lot of stiffness into thoracic rotation. So like that's just a very generalized statement, but I do see those a lot.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, yeah. There's so many answers that you could give to these questions, but
Yeah. I have a free movement screen though that's available on my website, and it walks you through I think 5 or 6 exercises that talk all about like the stability and mobility, so you can kind of see how you rank yourself in those
mhm,
certain aspects, including like the immobilities I see and the instabilities. So
yeah.
all runners should go through that because it really is gold. If you are sick of dealing with injuries that pop up when you increase your mileage or you increase your speed, like something's going
Hmm.
on. Maybe you got to backtrack a little bit, fix it, strengthen it, stabilize it, whatever it is, and then you can start progressing.
Hmm.
But I really
Okay.
encourage every runner to go through that.
Yeah. So tracing back to what we were talking about before, when you were talking about how sometimes you have to call audibles with exercises you're prescribing to your clients. When do you kind of know? that an exercise should be thrown out the window versus kept in their routine. They might reach back to you and say, "Oh, this one kind of agitated the area a little bit towards the last few reps." Like when do you know when to draw the line with that?
Yeah, so I would say one, you have to know your injury, you have to know your research. Like there are certain exercises with certain injuries that are going to cause pain. And I'm not talking like 10 out of 10 pain, but they're going to cause a little bit of pain. That is perfectly okay. You're just remodeling the cells and the tissue. So it really is knowing like what are you doing to the body when you go through this exercise and should it be painful or not. So
Hmm.
I mean, I usually will throw out an exercise if it's causing maybe more than like 4 out of 10 pain, I would say. I don't really necessarily like to always ask my patients, is this painful? Is this
Hmm.
painful? Because then it's like just in their, I don't want to say it's in their head, but that's what they're focusing on versus do you feel a difference between the left and the right side? Like, let's focus on other things besides pain. So I would say, yeah, if they reach out and they say, this one exercise really got me in terms of like pain, then I would say, okay, let's modify it. I'm not necessarily going to throw it out just yet, but let's modify it a little bit. Maybe take the resistance down or decrease the reps, decrease the range of motion. So I never really throw out an exercise. It just might be a little bit of a modification till the body can build up that tolerance to that load, and then we can progress again.
Hmm.
So yeah, it really comes down to knowing exactly what you're doing. And then I'll also throw it out if an exercise is obviously too easy, but that's when it also can get tricky because a lot of the stabilization exercises, they're working on motor. If I'm working on motor control, they might feel easy because there's no resistance, it's high
Hmm.
rep, you're just focusing on activating that muscle and relaxing it. So if someone says that it's too easy, and I'm like, well, that's okay. We'll just keep doing it.
Yeah.
It has a purpose in the plan. And just, I'm not trying to just make you have the hardest workout of your life here. I'm trying to get you back to being pain free. So it's kind
Hmm.
of putting that like personal trainer hat off and really focusing on, well, what's the plan here? Like, can I progress it in any way and should I?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
Interesting. I'm sure that's something that you learn over time as well. That's something that you kind of have to learn as you coach more and more people. I mean, you're at 1,200 at
Yeah.
this point, so you're probably a master. You got your 10,000 hours in, so
Yeah, and that's just online. So I definitely treated a lot in person before, but I mean, I still am always learning. Like research is always
mhm,
changing. It would be doing my clients a disservice if I stopped reading research. It's just net. It's 100% necessary in order to grow and be able to treat more and more clients because
mhm,
I mean, there's a lot. I'm making it seem like a lot of people have cookie cutter injuries, but a lot of runners do not.
mhm.
So it really comes down to like, it's a puzzle. It's, putting a piece in, seeing if it fits, seeing if it works. If it doesn't over time, all right, we gotta switch something up.
Yeah. So top three strength exercises. What are they? What would you? I know you might say it depends, but say you could only choose three exercises for every individual, no matter their injury. What would you give them?
So I would say one of them would definitely be working into a single leg squat. So modify as you need to if it's not perfect, but definitely focus on your single leg squat, making
Mhm,
sure you have great form and then progressing it with isometrics or increasing your load with your dumbbells. Definitely work on single leg squat. I also I love Bulgarian split squats. They're freaking hard and I love them. They're
so good.
very good for building up strength. Um, and I recently, well, I also really love like any variation of farmers walks. Like recently, I've been really
Okay.
on that. If I added a bonus exercise, would be Turkish get-ups, which are awful
Ah.
to do, but they're really good for runners.
That's interesting. Yeah, I wouldn't have expected that to break the top three. That's
Yeah,
yeah, that's an interesting one that I thought about incorporating into my training, but I don't know when it's safe to do that because it might maybe that one might be a little bit more intensive. But I guess
yeah,
of course it'll depend on the athlete what their injury is. So
yeah. And you can start with like modifying it. I don't ever say, all right, go do a Turkish get up. It's more like
mm,
let's do you know, a modification before we even do a half Turkish get up, and then we'll progress to Turkish get up.
Hmm.
But that would be like my 3 or 4 for building strength, just strength.
Okay. On the other hand, this might be a weird question, but like, what are your like three least favorite exercises to give someone? Like, I know you mentioned kind of clamshells can work for people, but they're not necessarily a great exercise. There's likely better alternatives to that
Mhm.
for most individuals. But what are a few exercises that you're like, I'd rather give something else out to the athlete?
Yeah, I mean, my thing with clamshells, and I've given them to patients, and the thing is, though, runners need something that's going to be able to get them back to running pain free. So if we're just doing clamshells, I mean, it's okay if you start at clamshells and then you progress, side plank with clamshells, standing clamshells, other
Mm,
things like that, where you're really focusing on that glute med activation. But we're just sticking with clamshells for 4 weeks. I mean, my God, let's progress. So I would say clamshells are like my big thing because a lot of people don't progress them
mm-hmm.
correctly.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Bridges are given out to literally everyone with a pulse. So I don't necessarily care for them either because it's just also one of those things with clamshells. Like you got to be able to progress it. Add in a march, add in single leg, add in isometric. Like, come on, let's progress and make it
Mm-hmm.
challenging.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so definitely those two. And I would say a third one. Hmm. I don't. I mean, maybe just something that it's like literally anything that's not being progressed. Like I'm so
Mm-hmm.
passionate about making a exercise like moderately challenging for majority of them. Like I said before, like
Mm-hmm.
maybe some are motor control, but they have to be challenging. Like if you're just standing on one leg for 4 weeks straight and it's easy to you, like we need to progress it. So anything
Mm-hmm.
that's just not being progressed really boils my blood.
All right,
because
that's
I
a picking
because
that
then
up.
I because this is what happens is I get the client that saw a PT in person or tried to do something on their own, and then I get them and they'll say, oh yeah, I did this and this in therapy, and they're all very close to similar exercises, and I'm like, well, what else did you do? And it's like, well, I just did this for 4 to 6 weeks, and it's like, okay, so we need to definitely progress you. Like you are
Mhm.
way past that point,
Yeah.
and the whole goal is to return to run as quickly and as safely as possible. And there's so many exercises that are fantastic for runners out there. So
Mhm.
that's my biggest thing is, all right, let's progress you. Let's actually address the source of pain here. And you just, I see it a lot. So
Yeah.
it's refreshing when someone comes to me and I can kind of walk them through their
Mm.
injury and exactly what we're going to do. So that part is like really fun for me, but I do see like that a lot, just like even on social media.
Yeah.
So,
Huh. Yeah, that's a good point. I think progression is very important. That's something I kind of just learned right now. Well, to be honest,
mhm.
because I'm doing single leg glute bridges right now. I'm sick of them. I've been doing for like forever. I'm maybe what should I do as an alternative potentially? Like, what are good alternatives to a single leg glute bridge that will get firing that glute medius in other forms? Or I guess it would depend probably too.
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing if you're doing single leg glute bridges and they're still not 100%, they're still not easy
Hmm.
for you to do, like, then yeah, I mean, I'm talking about like weeks. Like, things take
Hmm.
weeks to progress, but if it's easy, like, that's one thing. And you're just kind of like going through the motion, then it's the same if you were strength training and nothing is necessarily super difficult for you. Well, then you're just going through the motion and you're not going to see the results you want to see. So,
Yeah.
like if I was progressing someone from even a bridge, I might add a resistance band and then I might add in marching in the bridge position. I might add your feet elevated in the bridge position. I might add holding one knee in as you do a single leg bridge, single knee
Mm,
to chest
mhm.
bridge. And then as we progress to a single leg bridge, then you can start to do it on an uneven surface like a Swiss ball or a Bosu. You can start to hold it for a long period of time. You can start
Okay.
to rotate your pelvis. So there's
Mhm.
like so many progressions, and a lot of
Okay.
my runners might not get to that one on one. And then that's why it's good they go through my strength and mobility. program, but there's, it's one thing if something's not easy, like, yeah, you should still, definitely be focusing on it and
Hmm.
there's no problem there. But it's another thing if it's like just easy and you're just cranking out the reps and you don't even feel a thing.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, that answers my question because for me it's kind of it's still hard, I think. It's still kind of
Hmm.
it's still a little difficult. So maybe once it feels easier, I'll start to integrate some of those things you just suggested. Like
Yeah.
I've seen the foam rolling one before on Emma Coburn's page, a professional runner. Which look
Hmm.
good using the foam roller under your foot. So maybe I'll try that one down the road.
Yeah.
For now, I'll probably just stick
Yeah.
to it and keep hating it. So
Yeah, I mean, if it's still difficult too, and you're just not seeing progression, then
yeah.
maybe we need to look at your form. Maybe we need to
Hmm.
decrease the reps and slow down the exercise versus you just lifting and lowering your butt up and down as fast
Hmm.
as you can. Really slow down the exercise, make it more of like a 1, 2, 3 up, 1, 2, 3 down. So there's a lot of different ways to kind of attack it if you're not seeing progression too.
Mm. Yeah.
Or maybe you're compensating with your low back and that's why you're not being able to progress with
Mm.
it. There's
Hmm.
form is big. Form is definitely very big.
Yeah. Yeah. That's when I was working with my PT, that was kind of like I was a little bit out of vision at the moment. We were just kind of focusing on the strength mobility aspects. Um, but yeah, eventually I think form's a good thing to look at. It's just like we didn't want to change too much at once. Because I think
Hmm.
a lot of runners will like try like five different things all at once to try to fix something. I've done that
Hmm.
before. Anytime I
Hmm.
say a lot of runners, I'm talking about myself. So I don't
Personalized
know if anyone
attack.
does it, but I do it. Um, I'll just grab like
I'm
I'll find four
guarantee
different
they
things
do it.
online, and I'll just be like, "Oh, all of these things help." I'll just do all of them at once, and then something will work.
Yeah.
Problem with that
Yeah.
is, well, you could either agitate something with something you do, or it'll get better, but then you won't know what fixed it because you did four different things. So then you don't know what to
Yes.
do in the future. You just do all four again. You waste so much time. So it's better to go
Yeah.
try one thing, see if it works. If it does, great. Otherwise, go back to the
Hmm.
drawing board, try something else. But don't try multiple things at once. Be slow with how you progress
Yeah.
things. I think that's very important. Something I've learned too. Just my
Yeah.
little tidbit of knowledge there. Um, and okay, cool. We'll close out the PT section with one more question, I guess. Um, you kind of hinted at before, but the highs and lows of a PT. You mentioned how patience is important because obviously sometimes progressions are usually not linear. They weren't with me. They aren't with a lot of people. How do you kind of
Hmm.
deal with that? Um, yeah. How do you
So
deal with that?
if So it definitely depends on where someone is in their training or in their return to run. If they're running and they're still seeing, nothing seems to be helping, then, you have to take a look at something else. Like and
Mm-hmm.
the other thing to really note, which luckily I had a great mentor that told me this when I was a student, is you will not be able to help every single person that walks in the clinic or walks into, me trying to help them. It's just, it's not, it's it's silly to even think that because some people might have something else completely going on that's affecting their injury. Maybe someone actually needs surgery and they're just PT and that conservative treatment cannot help them. So it's really important. Like, I'm so happy my mentor told me that. Like, you will not be able to fix everyone, but try your freaking best to. But just know, like, don't don't take it personally if you cannot
Mm-hmm.
help every single person. Um, so I would think, that's definitely important to note. Other things is just the highs and lows. I mean, when I worked in an orthopedic clinic, outpatient, a big low was how many patients I was seeing a day, which is kind of why I ventured off onto my own. I was seeing,
Mm-hmm.
17, 20 patients a day,
Wow.
which is
A lot.
not that great for patient care, obviously. And I obviously wanted to help every single person and really get to know them. So that was very difficult. And it all comes down to insurance and money.
Mm-hmm.
But that was very difficult in the actual clinic setting. But now it's great because, I can spend as much time with my client as I want. I can talk to them outside of our sessions. And I would say the highs are obviously when a client's progressing and, they're able their first run back and it's pain free. Like I just get so excited for them, and it's like, all right, like that's kind of like all this hard work is paying off, like
Hmm.
relief in a way.
Yeah.
So I always get like very excited, or like I get a lot of clients now that are breaking PRs with like my strength and mobility program. So I get so excited for them, like had no pain and I got a PR, because a lot of runners don't realize, like if you're strength training and you're doing your
Hmm.
mobility, yeah, you're helping to prevent injury, but you're also gonna be able to run faster.
Yeah.
So I always find that like very exciting. Like I get so hyped for all my clients, even if I've never met them before in my entire life.
Yeah.
So there's definitely, more highs than lows. Being a PT is definitely a privilege. I'm so grateful to be able to help people. I think sometimes as a PT, now that I'm a little more experienced, we kind of take like helping people for granted at times. Like, oh, great, you're better. It's like, oh, great, this
Hmm.
person's better too. Like, check done. Like,
Check. Who's
everything's
next?
good. Yeah, it definitely, in a way, like you can feel like that some days where you're like, oh, great, this person's doing well, you know,
Hmm.
but really making sure that there's a person behind who you're helping, and you're really helping. If you think about like when you're injured, like you can be a completely different person, like mentally, physically. So really understanding like you are giving them, their hobby back, their life back. That's their stress escape. They're gonna be able to do more good in the world because of you. Like there's so many other things to think about versus, oh yay, they're running pain free. On to the
Hmm.
next thing.
Yeah.
So it really is good to look at that whole picture of what you did to help them.
Okay. Yeah. All right, cool. Um, I had so much more I could have asked, but I want to keep things moving. We've talked about 50 minutes. I want to get into the running section and then let you go. You're a busy woman. I don't want to take up all your time. Um, so how did you get into running, and when did you think about starting to incorporate strength training?
Yeah, so I got into running after grad. Well, no, I take that back. I was running in grad school, but it was just like to escape studying. I don't know. It wasn't like I enjoyed anything like that. In grad school, it
Okay.
was really
Yeah.
just so I didn't have to stare at my laptop. But I really started running in high school, I would say, but it was punishment. Like I was a softball pitcher.
Hmm.
Everything about running was punishment. I mean, my coach would like make us run with our helmets on like miles. It was literally awful. So I never had that good taste in my mouth when it came to running or sprints. So
Hmm.
I think I really started to enjoy it. Even like in playing softball in college, we'd have to run a mile under a certain time. And it was like, if you don't do this, you're not making the team. So it's very like a negative taste. But once I got
Hmm.
into grad school and even out of grad school, I enjoyed it a lot more. It was more like no pressure running, which was always nice. And it really was like getting outside, getting fresh air that I love too. And then when I was thrown into working with runners, which I really did like, I was like, well, if I'm going to help them, I need to know, I need to run and be able to understand what they're going through. And that was like my main thought process. Like these people are running marathons, and I worked in DC at the time, so I was like, I need to be able to run and understand what is going on with them. So I think
Hmm.
that really motivated me too. But after a while, I got injured because all I was doing was running. And so it was a very different injury. And if you're a PT, we make the worst patients. I have so many PT friends and no one wanted to help me. So I even have a brother who's a PT, and he was just like dry needling me. But it was a very complicated injury. It was not cookie cutter at all. It was a lot of like
Hmm.
hypermobility, causing like my foot to go numb, but the hypermobility was in my knee. And I was training for a half at the time, and I knew I couldn't run. But I also was like, well, I can't run, so I can't do anything. Like it only hurt when I'd run, but I was like, I
Hmm.
can't do anything now. And I just kind of like moped around for a while, and I was like, okay,
Been
this
there, done
is
that.
crap. Like I could do something. I just don't want to. I want to mope around and
Yeah.
feel sorry for myself. So I finally started strength training, and I realized like how weak I really was in the posterior chain, and that caused a
Mm.
lot of my hypermobility, translating my tibia and fibula forward when I would run. Um, it was just a very different injury, but I did a lot of strength training, and that's literally what is in the Runners Complete program is all the strength training I did for 12 weeks. And then when I got back to running, I was pain free and I was like, I'm on to something here. Like
Hmm.
runners need to be doing this. So it was pretty cool how it all worked out, like a blessing in disguise. And now I've been injury free since. I definitely take a lot of pride in educating runners on what they need to be doing outside of running.
Hmm.
And really making sure that they understand the importance of that if they want to continue to run.
Yeah. Yeah, complicated. Maybe it was good you had a complicated injury. Sounds like it kind of took you to a good place. So
Oh
overall, a
yeah,
good thing, despite in the moment, obviously, a lot of frustration regarding or revolving around that. Trying to figure
yeah.
out what's wrong, trying to get it better.
And I
But
did all the things that my clients would do now. Like I went to get
mhm.
new shoes, blamed it on the shoes. It was definitely not
Classic,
the answer.
classic. Blame it on the
Definitely not
shoes.
the answer. Yeah, I got new Brooks and I was like, yeah, that didn't help at all. So it was definitely eye-opening. Like it's just very different when you're a PT and you're injured because you're also like, well, I can fix myself. And then when it's
Mm,
actually you, you're like, okay, now you have to go through the exercises and actually do what your clients are doing. But
yeah,
yeah, it gets a little tricky.
yeah. Okay, okay, cool, cool. So how many injuries have you had, would you say, over your time as a runner in total, including that one you just mentioned?
Just that one. Yeah, just that one.
It's pretty good. That's
So
pretty good. All right.
yeah,
Doing yourself
yeah.
justice as a
Any
PT.
right. Yeah. Anytime it's funny. So like anytime an injury comes on with a runner, like 90% of the time it's gradual because running's obviously
Hmm.
it's not a contact sport. You're not cutting, you're not doing all these other things that other sports are doing. So it's just very straight on. So it's easy to pick up on patterns because it's so repetitive. So anytime like something comes on, maybe my hip will start to feel tight during a run, like take those hints that your body is giving you and work on it or else it's just going to keep getting worse. Like it's kind of rare if you continue to run and you're building mileage or you're working on speed or you're just running for fun. Very rare as you keep running that injury is or that hint that your body's giving you is going to magically go away. So like take that and literally run with it and take it as a sign that okay, I need to address this. Like, look on my feed. I have like so many videos of things and I keep it very straightforward. Like, what do I need to be doing? And I explain it. So make sure that you don't just like hope and pray it goes away or stretch it out. Like, definitely address it. Even if it's not never turns into full pain, could be a weakness that you should address if you want to,
Mm,
continue to meet your running goals.
that's a very good. That's a golden nugget right there in my video. That's gonna be. I'm gonna tag that one. That's gonna go up on the Instagram when this podcast goes up. That's really good to hear. And I might have to do that for myself.
Mm-hmm.
Because I got this little like thing in my Achilles, like left side, that I've never had Achilles issues, but like occasionally, like when I walk, it'll click a little bit and like it doesn't hurt or anything, but it's a little
Mm-hmm.
weird. And I'm just like, huh, all right. And then I just ignore it because it's not like ever, it doesn't come up when I'm running. It sometimes it's just in the
Mm-hmm.
morning when I'm walking down the stairs and I just find it a little weird. So maybe I'll have to look into that now because you said that. Just like
Yeah.
do a little bit to tend to that. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
that's
Start
a good.
strengthening it.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like
Work
that a
on your
lot.
mobility.
Awesome. All right.
Awesome.
Well, we'll get in a
Cool.
little general section here, and then we'll let you go. We're at an hour, which is I always say 40 to 50 minutes, and it always goes over. So
You're fine.
apologize if you have somewhere to be. We'll
No,
make
I
this.
don't.
Okay. Okay. Good. Are you off today? Are you off today?
Yeah, I mean, I have a couple clients I'm meeting with later on, but
Okay.
yeah, just
Okay.
working on my membership, trucking away.
Trucking away. All right. A little distraction from the work that is.
Yeah.
Cool. So what's your favorite running shoe ever?
So if you asked me this 3 years ago or even 2 years ago, I'd say something different. But right now, I love the Hoka Cliftons. I think they really just fit my foot exactly what I need. Like they have the cushion and the support. And it's funny though, I think it's the name's Talker and they have a library of research and they just came out
Hmm.
with a pretty major study that said your running shoe has nothing to do with your injuries, basically to sum it up. And I think And they also came out with another article a couple months ago that said your foot, like, so some people are, you think, oh, I have a high arch, I need more support or more
Mm,
cushion. I have flat feet, I need more stability. So they also came out saying just pick the shoe that is most comfortable for you. It really doesn't affect your gait as much as you think.
mm,
So I think that's really important because a lot of people, will really look into their shoe and like more like the drop and what's the support like and all this other
mm,
stuff, but really you should be focusing that attention on your stability, mobility, and strength, and
mm,
look at what your body's doing versus what your shoe doing. So I think
mm,
I have a ton of different shoes, different brands, different heel drops, and they're all comfortable, so I use them all, but they also all have different place in like my speed, my long runs, my
mm.
treadmill runs, and all that. So I would say Hoka Clifton's second place, Saucony Tempest. Sorry, I almost
Okay.
said something else. Saucony
Saucony
Tempest is
Tempest.
it? Yeah. Yeah.
I've been wanting to try that one. I'm intrigued by it. Um, So out of curiosity, is there any exceptions to that? Because like, so I have Morton's and Aroma, and it's kind of an annoyance. I'll be honest. Like
Hmm.
I've worn a lot of different shoes, and most of them don't work. I stick to my glycerins most of the time, but like in those cases, are there exceptions to that where like maybe a shoe is the thing that you need, like the right shoe? Because they'll tell you like wide. They always say wide shoe, low drop is like the best thing for an Aroma. That's what they always say. Um,
Yeah.
like, how do you feel about that? Just out of curiosity.
So the shoe, like maybe you need something externally to put in your shoe. Like maybe you need
Mm,
more cushion there, but a shoe isn't going to be made for Morton's Neuroma because not everyone has Morton's Neuroma. So you need to really look at like maybe you need more cushioning, chain like second, third toe. Maybe you need to work on your toe mobility. It's I would say like the biggest thing is like offloading that area. So
mm,
I would add like something externally, put it in the shoe versus
okay.
trying to find the right shoe. Because
Mm,
remember, not everyone has it. So there's not going to necessarily be your perfect shoe out there, versus like just adding in more cushioning, building up that cushion to offload it.
okay. Yeah. All right. A little bit of a selfish question, but I was just curious because I feel like I'm a little bit different than like the general audience because not a ton of people have neuromas and they can be
Mhm.
debilitating. So it's yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess in the back of my head I'm like, oh, there's got to be like a perfect shoe for me, but uh, it's weird that like to me it's like the glycerin's a complete. It's like the what's the word? It's like the opposite of what they're suggesting. Like it's somewhat narrow-ish. Like Brooks, well, the Brooks runs a little wider than most brands, but it's like got the tapered
Yeah.
toe box. It's not really letting your toes like completely splay out, and it's like a higher drop. It's like 8 millimeters. So it's kind of like, why is this working for me if everyone's saying like the opposite should work for me? Um, and when I say work for me, I mean it's
So
good. It could be better. That's why in the back of my head I'm like, oh, I want to keep looking for something better. Um, but
yeah, but
yeah.
that comes down to not everything that's summarized in research is going to work on every single
Mm,
person. Like everyone is so different, everybody is so different. So you really have to like take the research with a grain of salt because it's going to work for most of the population, but if it doesn't work for you, just find something that's comfortable. I mean, at the
mm,
end of the day, just find something that's comfortable for you, and if you have pain in every single shoe that you try, like not necessarily Morton's Neuroma, but talking more like if your body's
mhm.
compensating, then look at your body. Don't blame the shoe.
I
That's
like to blame
my
the shoe.
tip. Yeah. Do not blame the shoe because you probably have pain without shoes too.
This is accurate. This is true. All
Yeah.
right. All right, next question. Current running shoe rotation. Do you have a rotation or do you just stick to your Cliftons only?
I do have a rotation. I do the Brooks Ghost new ones that I just got.
Okay.
So I'm kind of like doing my shorter runs, like easier runs in them, just to see how I like them. I have the oh goodness, the New Balance foam like V4 or
The fresh
something. I'm
from the more before?
It might be that.
The more
Yeah,
it's like
I
the big
actually
stack one, the big
yeah
yeah, the mores.
yeah
Yeah, okay. All
Yeah,
right.
I like them. They're very light. I like them. I
Yeah.
have the Hoka Bondies, which I don't love. They're just not comfortable for me, so I don't normally run in
Hmm.
them. I'll walk in them. I feel like I have another shoe.
You said the
Um,
Tempest earlier. Do you run the
yeah, the
Tempest?
Saucony Tempest.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Okay.
I have, I have a partnership with Running Warehouse, so I'm not just, blowing all my paychecks on shoes, but I do like to try all these different running shoes just so I
Yeah.
can give people advice on them, and but it really comes down to like what's comfortable. And I think, Hoka Clifton's and Saucony Tempest, every time I post about them, people are like, I tried these and I love them. Like, so also don't think that just because a shoe's a bestseller, it's going to work for your foot. So I
Yeah.
think that's really, really, really key. And my other advice is to give it a couple weeks of
Mm,
breaking in. Like I hated the
mm.
Cliftons when I tried them, was like, these are awful. They're not comfortable. And they really just need to be broken in. So
Yeah.
now they're my favorite.
That's a good one. That's a good little bit of wisdom as well. Like sometimes you got to break in a shoe a little bit, wear in the insole, wear in the midsole a little bit before it's really gonna start working for you. Uh, I'll
Yeah.
just like wear a shoe for like 2 hours, and if I don't like it, I'm just like done with it. But I think that's important. I mean, like running
Yeah.
warehouse is great because you can run in the shoe and still return it, which
Yep.
is something I love about them. So that's kind of the brand I order from because of my foot, so I can
Yeah.
try them on, wear them for a couple weeks, really feel out if it's gonna work for me and then
Yeah.
return it if not. So everyone go use
Yeah.
Lisa's affiliate link for Running Warehouse if you want to
Yeah.
buy shoes.
Message me if you want it. And it's nice too because they'll send you, like I've ordered shoes for my mom off there and my aunt and everything. And every time you order shoes, they literally send you a return label with it. So you don't have
Hmm.
to pay for returns. Like it's all free. You have a certain amount of time. So it's really nice because I don't know about you, but I hate shopping now because there's so many crowds. So I'd rather just like order
Yeah,
it online, try it out, not move from my house. And
absolutely.
and then if I have to send it back, you have to send it back. It's no big deal.
Yeah, and I don't know about you, but I if I go into a running store, there's a 100% chance I walk out with the shoe even if I don't even want it, because I just feel
Yeah.
bad. I just get guilt. I feel
Hmm.
guilty, and I just get the shoe because like they're like always trying to push you to buy it. So I just walk out
Yeah.
getting a shoe that I don't like, and I'm like, why did I just buy that shoe? And then so
Yeah. Then you
whereas
just return it.
online you just yeah, and then I just return it. It's pointless, but versus online you don't have to worry about that. You can just return it and
Hmm.
you don't have to necessarily explain yourself. You just say refund, check the refund box and
Yep.
return it.
Yep.
Cool.
So nice.
Last little section. I'll say two things and then you just choose your preference. So first of all, track or road.
Road for sure.
Okay. Okay.
But my high school track close to me, which is the high school I went to, is a very nice track. So
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah.
yeah, I remember, short story, I remember running on the track one summer day at night because obviously there's lights, and this girl was running like so flipping fast next to me, like just sprints. And I was like, my God, I'm getting lapped like bad. And I was like, she has to be like, I knew she went to the high school, and I don't remember her name off the top of my head, but she like ended up being like full scholarship to University of Tennessee. I'm pretty sure she's on the USA like Junior Olympics. Like I was like, makes sense. Okay, I don't feel bad now.
You like got home and you looked it up. You wanted to know who she
Yeah.
was.
I
That's
was like, what
hilarious.
in the world? Like this, I mean, she had like the coach, she was just totally doing amazing. And I was like, there's no way this is someone off the street. Like she has to be she was incredible.
That's
So
awesome. Wow.
hopefully she's listening to this.
Yeah, hopefully. I'll add her in the Instagram story when I post the episode.
Yeah.
Okay, split shorts or half tights?
I would say half tights. I think they're just easier for running because they also usually have pockets on the side. So at least mine do. So it's
Okay.
really nice for holding keys and everything.
Yeah. Running hat or no hat?
No hat. Hair up, off my neck, 100%.
Okay. Okay. What about winter? You wear a beanie?
No.
Wow. Okay.
Because yeah,
Okay.
I don't know. I just sometimes, I mean, rarely. It doesn't get like, it gets cold in Richmond, but it's not
Yeah.
like Pittsburgh,
Hmm.
it's not. So usually I end up like sweating through the beanie. I've tried it, but
Okay.
I think I just, prefer things off my head. I feel like they make me sweat more.
That's fair. That's fair. Got a warm head. You don't need that. You don't need the hat. Uh, Long
Yeah.
runs or workouts?
Workouts.
Okay. Easy runs or long runs?
I think this depends on like what season I'm in. Like when I was training for my race, I loved the long runs. I thought they were so
Hmm.
fun. I felt so accomplished. But now that I'm kind of in that season, I'm post race, I'm really working on my strength more, picking up more dumbbell or heavier dumbbells. I think I'm really just enjoying easy runs, no pressure, just getting out there and just enjoying my run
Hmm.
versus like, feeling like you have to hit a certain pace or you have to hit a certain mileage. So it really depends.
Yeah.
Depends.
Okay. 5K or half marathon?
Half.
Okay.
I don't know. I did a 10K this past year and I was like, it'll be great. And it was awful. I mean, it wasn't awful. It was just 10K shorter races are so much harder than longer races.
Mm.
I don't care what anyone says. They're so much harder. You're just sprinting the whole time. And I was just like, of course, it was a smaller 10K. So I was like, I'm going to get in the front. And I'm really
Mm.
not that fast. I'm, very average pace. And I was just like totally booking it. And like, I obviously had a PR, but I was like, oh my God, I
Nice.
didn't like it pushed me, but it was like, I'm just sprinting for 6 miles versus like a half. You're like, oh, I'm enjoying it. I'm taking in the views. Like, I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah. I guess it
So,
depends what your background is in too. Like you probably started with
yeah.
more of a longer distances. Like it sounds like you kind of started right at the half marathon.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
outside of getting punished in high school in softball
Yeah.
practice, but you
Right.
probably run like a mile or something in there. But
Yeah.
yeah, okay,
Yep.
that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
Sunday long runs or Saturday long runs?
Saturday. Yeah,
Okay. And
definitely.
training or racing?
Um, I would say racing.
Mm,
Yeah.
okay. All right. That's all. Just wanted to quick fire off there. Thank you so much, Lisa, for coming on. This has been great.
Yeah.
Do you have any advice for the runners who just keep getting injured? I'm sure you do.
I mean, you can obviously reach out to me on Instagram. I try to respond to every single message. So, and try to be fairly quick at it. So don't feel like you just have to keep getting injured. Also, that's not the norm. Like runners should not be injured all the time. It's okay if you're in a cycle of injuries. Injuries happen, and it doesn't necessarily mean you did anything wrong. They can just happen. So, and like I said, there's so many different aspects of why someone can get injured. So it's not like normally one thing. But don't get discouraged if you get injured. Look at it as a chance to get stronger and learn more about your body and what's going on.
Mhm.
I would say majority, like 99% of my clients that work with me or go through my programs after an injury, they're 100% stronger pre-injury. So
Mm.
really look at it as just like a blessing in a way. It's hard to see it that way, but it really can make you see, oh my gosh, like I'm so much stronger. My runs are so much faster. I'm more efficient. So definitely don't get discouraged with it, even though it's easy to do. Just try to jump on that injury early on or pain
Mm.
early on. And you can always reach out to me. I'll try to help guide you to wherever you need to go if you need to see a doctor or whatnot. So,
There you go. Everyone go do Lisa's movement screening if you want
yes,
to check yourself out, see what might be a little bit haywire. So yeah, cool.
yeah,
That's all. Thank you so much, Lisa. It's been fun and good luck with your
welcome.
future training. Hope to see you.
Thank you. It's
Yeah,
great to be on here.
yeah. Thank you so much, and I'll talk to you again. All right.
Awesome. All right.
Bye,
Have a good
Lisa.
one.
Thanks. You
Bye.
too. Bye.